Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Late last month, there was news that threatens the future of 28 organic dairy farm businesses in Vermont. Those 28 farm businesses currently sell their milk to a major organic milk processor called Horizon Organics. Horizon announced in August that it will no longer buy the Vermont milk starting next September. This is one of several topics we're going to discuss today with Vermont's Secretary of Agriculture, Anson Tebbetts. Anson joins us via Zoom. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for being with us.
Good afternoon, Fran.
So could you recap what's happened with Horizon Organics and these Vermont businesses in Vermont over the past month?
Well, we have 28 dairy farmers spread across the state of Vermont that are, very concerned, obviously. Horizon has decided they no longer will buy their milk. So they're going to lose their market unless we can find some alternatives over the next year. As you mentioned, we do have a little bit of time, although it's not a lot of time. So we're really focused on seeking alternatives so these dairy farmers and these businesses can stay open.
Right, and they just feel they can get the milk they need from the Midwest. So it's a regional issue for many farms, not just in Vermont. And so you've talked and listened to many of these farmers. What are they telling you?
Well, obviously they're scared. So we formed a task force, and the task force is meeting every couple of weeks. And as you mentioned, it is a regional decision. So there are farmers that are impacted in Maine, New Hampshire, as well as parts of New York. We've convened this task force. We'll be looking at could they possibly sell their milk to a couple of other organic buyers within the region? Could we do some processing within state of an organic brand, either fluid milk or possibly a value-added brand? Or could they find new markets somewhere else? Would a new company step forward and want to process this milk? All this is really very early. But we have formed this task force, and we've had a lot of enthusiasm from a lot of folks, from lenders, from grain dealers, from the public, the farmers that are involved. And also we've had support from those that sell milk that is not organic, and they're willing to step up and help. We've had help from NOFA, the Vermont Farm Bureau, all the various groups that are really concerned about this. So we're going to get to work, and we're going to try to do the best we can to give these folks some alternatives.
Wonderful. And is this a regional, again, effort, or mainly in Vermont, and probably will spread regionally, but are you looking, is everybody involved?
Yeah, we've been discussing the issue with our folks, our counterparts in the other states. One thing we do have in Vermont is we have the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center, and that's been underway for more than a year. So we already have some contacts with other states. So they're discussing this as well because, for example, Maine is in a very similar situation to us. They don't have a lot of alternatives like Vermont has, but we're talking with them. So in the end, it could be possibly a regional solution to this if we can figure it out.
Okay. And does this Horizon decision raise concerns about other major organic processors like Stonyfield or Organic Valley?
Well, they are at the table as well, so we've had discussions with them. Currently, they're not in the best position to take on more milk. Many of their farmers have had a program that's limited their supply, and they cannot expand or take on new farms at this point. But they're engaged with us. They want to hear about our work. They're at the table. They're part of this task force. So that's encouraging. It's just a matter of if we can figure this all out in the weeks and months ahead.
All right, indeed. Well, before this recent news involving organic dairy farming, there have been many years of economic hardship for conventional dairies. And in 2019, before the pandemic, your agency convened a statewide farming summit to address the future. So what set the stage for that summit, and are there actions being made from that time?
Yes, out of that came the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center, and that is funded through the United States Department of Agriculture. We're receiving about $6 million a year from that grant that's coming to the agency, and it's a regional approach. As we know, milk pricing is very complicated. It's a federal system that our farmers are trapped in, and at times feel very frustrated with. But we're seeking alternatives. We're looking at new products. We're looking at packaging for dairy that could help them. We're looking at new practices involving grazing. We've had some of our dairy farmers take the leap and decide they want to transition to goat dairies. We have a major one that had 300 dairy cows, but now are milking more than 700, 800 goats now, and they hope to get up to 1,500 because there is a market for goat cheese and goat milk in Vermont through Vermont Creamery. So we're looking at all sorts of alternatives, also technical education. UVM Extension, we are funding a couple positions at UVM Extension because our dairy farmers from that summit were really looking for more advice, technical advice, best practices. So those things are underway. So from that summit, we were able to establish this Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center. And over the long term, we hope it will help our dairy farmers and what they're doing on the land.
I hope so, because it seems that the markets are really not in our control. They're international issues and as well as national ones that we in Vermont can't control, it seems.
Yeah, it's one of the frustrating parts of this is, and Congress would have to act to change how the pricing system has been established. We've advocated some sort of supply control method in Vermont through the Milk Commission. But the United States is so diverse with many different pockets. It's very difficult for the dairy industry to come together on some of these issues. But we've got to keep trying. We've got to give people more alternatives, best practices, et cetera. So we keep plugging away with it, and who knows, maybe at some point things will change. The pandemic also had a dramatic impact on the United States dairy economy with loss of markets, with schools and institutions closed down, coffee shops, etc. So that milk did not have a lot of market for it. But there was a resurgence of cheese and butter, and people began baking again. So that helped to some extent, but it wasn't enough to offset the losses in the fluid market.
Well, let's get back to, it's interesting that you brought up goat and goat dairying, because this is something that if you haven't been part of agriculture, you might not know about, but that is pretty big. So this is one possible solution.
Yeah, and it's not going to be for everybody, but we want to put it out there if people do want to transition to that, there are alternatives and options for them. This particular farm in Hyde Park, they took the leap. They are now selling their milk to Vermont Creamery, which is in Barrytown. That is a nationally recognized brand. They have a tremendous need for goat cheese. We have another goat dairy that's up in the Hardwick, Greensboro, Craftsbury area. They're milking goats, and they've got a bottled milk. They're also making cheese as well. It's connected to Jasper Hill, which is a significant major cheesemaker across the country and in the world. So there are all alternatives. We hope to give people the information that they need if they want to explore this, and possibly the resources to do that. Through the Northeast Business Innovation Center, we've got some grant money to help with markets and marketing for some of our goat dairies that are either making cheese or ice cream, et cetera. So it's another alternative. It's not going to be for everybody. But there are opportunities out there, and Vermont Creamery is willing to purchase milk from dairies willing to convert, because they do need the milk.
Fantastic. So there's a short-term and potentially a long-term real need for dairy, for goat dairy.
Absolutely, it's growing. It's at a scale that's bigger than, it's not 20 or 30 goats. We're talking about a significant. I think the model is you need about 300 to 400 goats. Wow. To sell to a buyer. But there are other goat dairies in Vermont that are doing very well selling, goat cheese and goat's milk, et cetera. So that's another market, sort of a specialty niche market for them as well.
That's exciting. So as we move into fall, your agency is joining with several partners for a unique Vermont campaign that runs through October. It's called Maple 100. So what is that all about, and why are you doing it?
Well, we often think about the maple season, maybe late winter, early spring, March, April, maybe February. But we're beginning to think we need to be thinking about maple every day of the week, and many of us do. So this is what this is about, particularly in the fall as we head into the foliage season. We're thinking about the sugar maple. So Maple 100 is just celebrating maple during this period of time. It may be that last stop before the creamy stand exits for the year because of the season. It may be visiting a sugar bush and taking a tour. We've got a lot of value added products now that are using maple as a natural sweetener, whether it be barbecue sauces or various products like that. So we just think it's important to celebrate maple. There's going to be events. We've teamed up with the tourism department with the state of Vermont. And you mentioned the website there. Go to the website. There's a number of events all celebrating maple, which is, an incredible product that we have in Vermont, and we're still the #1 producer of that across the country.
Okay, and there's the website, vtmaple100.com, for all of the events and a lot of things going on about maple. Thank you so much, Secretary Tebbetts, for joining us today. We hope that you can also check out your website if people want to get some of this information that we were talking about earlier today at www.agriculture.vermont.gov. Or you can call their number, 802-828-2430. Again, thank you all so much, Anson, for everything that you do, and we are hopeful for the future.
Thank you so much, Fran.
And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.